Exactly, right? That changed. So I'm just trying to make sure I see it over here, but I think we are good to go. So let me just pull up this page. Yep, there it is. I see it now. Okay. Like I said, I expect these things to give me the cues and give it to me when I want it. It's like Kevin Hart said, why don't you do it the way I saw you doing it in my head?
Because nothing happens that way, right?
Right? See, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Trying to separate or do a better job of what we're thinking in our head, what's going on in our brains, getting a better understanding around it, and trying to at least kind of remap it, reframe it, so we can get some better
Mhm.
results, get some better successes, right?
Right, right,
So
right, right.
something along those lines. But anyway, thank you all for joining us on this Facebook Live. I'm Curtis Webster, the founder of Dad's Married to Doctors. I'm excited to do the kind of this impromptu Facebook Live with Dr. Maiysha Clairborne. We are going to talk today about her whole work in this space of remapping your mind. So I can make sure I don't get mess up the names or the company names or anything else. Dr. Maiysha, let me have you introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do and what you've been doing for these last little bit.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, Curtis, for having me on. I'm Dr. Maiysha, and by training, I'm a family doc. That was my training, went to Morehouse School of Medicine. My
Nice.
background, my undergraduate background is Emory, so Emory undergrad psychology. And then I went to Morehouse School of Medicine, and then I did my residency in family medicine. Now, I've always been, I say a salmon swimming upstream. So like I've always been outside the box. I started an integrative medicine practice back in 2007. And then I realized, well, I feel like that I could be doing more.
Right.
And during around that time in 2013, I trained in hypnosis. I trained in something called Neuro Linguistic Programming, or NLP. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah.
And a rapid transformation technique called timeline therapy technique. And I started to implement that with my clients and my patients. And it was just like, I loved it so much that I ended up going and actually becoming a trainer so that I could actually train others and teach others how to use the tools of language, use the of internal and external verbal and nonverbal language to improve their results, create new
Right.
habits, create new thought patterns, and be at the source of one's emotional thoughts in life, right?
I
And
love it.
so that's what I do now. I am the owner of the Mind Remapping Academy,
Yep.
which is a school for deep personal transformation work. Either you're doing it like personally, or you're learning it in order to implement it in your life or implement it in, say, a business. And that's the work that I do now full time, along with some personal coaching as well in that
Right.
domain. Mhm.
Now, I love it, Dr. Maish. I remember when we kind of first met and got acquainted with one another and just talking through, looking at your stuff. It's amazing what you do and your approach to not just medicine, but your
Mhm.
approach to life. I know you were even talking on your some of your different podcasts. You have the next level physicians thinking out thriving outside the box podcast, and then now the new Black Mind Garden podcast. So I love it, and I love how you talked about you always wanted to bring the concept of the holistic, the natural. I think you even said that bringing doing the inner work to help with the outside. And making sure
Mhm.
that you could help to heal them both inside and outside whenever possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always sort of been that way. I feel like that healing is inside out. And what I've come to learn is a lot of it is how we think.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it starts in the mind and the attitude and the belief system, right? Because the actions are external, but
Right.
the motivation and the belief comes from that internal. And we grow up with these conversations that have been installed or that we have learned in our
Mm-hmm.
childhood and sometimes even before, right? Because our parents have their conversations and then we inherit those conversations, right? So we come up in the world gathering all of these various belief systems, beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about other people, beliefs about the world,
Mm-hmm.
and it frames how we act. It frames our ability to make changes in ourselves It frames how we interact with people, like our friends, our spouses, our children. It frames everything. Everything
Right.
comes from what those inner thoughts and beliefs have been constructed, what those are. And
Wow.
that's why, for me, dismantling those limiting beliefs and decisions and those stuck negative experiences, that past trauma, dismantling that is the key to having new behavior and having new results in your life.
I love it. I love it. You know, we talk so much within DMD, and now even within the new separate community that's for
Hmm.
guys that are looking to have that specific growth in those
Hmm.
different areas of life, called DMD plus. That's exactly
Hmm.
what we're talking about. Is
Right.
being specific and being mindful about those changes. I'm learning it's actually even more important than what I say and what I do outwardly is what I say and what I do inwardly, with the thoughts that I'm
Right.
thinking in my head and how those then transition and turn into those outward actions and expressions. So
Exactly.
I love that that we're going to get to chat for a little bit today. I know I want to kind of work with you and talk with you through some examples of how you've been able to help folks get through this. So for instance, we within DMD Plus, we
Hmm.
just finished doing 75 hard. So
Hmm.
15 of us committed to 75 days of rigorous physical activity, 2 workouts a day,
Hmm.
drinking a gallon of
Hmm.
water, reading
Hmm.
10 pages in a book every night, checking in with
Hmm.
our accountability partner, every day, taking a picture, all this whole laundry list of items. And so I'd
Hmm.
love, especially since you have that psychology background and then now you have this NLP training and background, w- there were things we were able to do in those 75 days and commit to that, like for instance, for me, I've never been able to focus on a workout or a diet regimen and actually keep it up. And I didn't do it perfect. I'll be the first one to say that 75 hard. I failed, even though I still lost 8 pounds and lost a couple of inches and fit into jeans that I hadn't been able to wear, since before my 12-year-old daughter was born. So
Well,
I
first of all,
failed.
congratulations.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So I failed by not doing the program to a T, but I still had some wins. And so that's what I want to ask you about is what is it? How can we, when I was trying to do it on my own and I would just kind of randomly make a decision, all right, I'm gonna lose some weight,
Hmm.
wouldn't do it. I might do it for a week or two. But now, I jump into this program with these guys, have that added accountability, and all of a sudden I'm able to stick to it and even if not doing it perfectly, get better results. What are you seeing? What happens for folks there within their heads and with their internal thought processes that allows for some of that, for some of those changes?
Well, first of all, I think part of it is the power of community. We're social beings by nature.
Yeah.
So, it is much easier to move together. There's an African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together.
Hmm.
And so, we spend there's we're very inside of this sort of culture that we've been born into. We're very individualized, and it's a specific culture that we're born into. But
Yeah.
if you look at other cultures, there's a very community based, family oriented family based, and you can see, you know, generational wealth that's passed down when you have like family based type conversations.
Right.
And so I think what happens is that when you get into a community of like minds that are that are going for a specific common or similar result, then you have an energy that's upheld inside of that conversation. And the conversation takes weight, and there is accountability. There's this
Right.
inherent accountability, but there's this feeling of belonging,
Yes.
and there's a feeling of camaraderie, and there's more fun there, and that pulls people forward as opposed to the thought process of doing something alone. Now there's something to be said about, well, what has to happen then in order for someone to be motivated without like there having to be a community accountability,
Exactly.
because there are things where there will not we can be a part of a clean the house, we could, right, a clean the house community
Exactly.
and a business, and they're like there's 24 hours in a day, unless we live in a commune
You're right.
where everybody is doing all that, we're moving like a school of fish. There has to be some internal motivation to do things that are outside of that community. But I think that there's a context for, certain things, whatever your internal conversation is about, say like exercise or food or whatever the thing that you're stopped by, there's some type of internal conversation that's a barrier, like a obligation or have to, or it's not fun, whatever that conversation is, that's what stops people. When you bring the community element in, it sort of pulls that away. For some people,
Yeah.
they get lost inside of the group. They'd rather do it alone. Like they get lost inside of a group.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is, it's also personality based as well, right? I know for myself, I'm very internally motivated. I'm fine with doing things alone. And it actually takes something for me to be in community, even though I know that when I'm in community, the conversations and what I'm up to in the world and, the big projects that I want to move forward are going to move forward inside a community, not by myself.
That's right.
And it still takes something for me and my personality to like be in community because I'm sort of an introvert.
No, no, I totally get that, and I love what you're saying there because I wonder if this goes back into that concept of the deep work that you were talking about
Mhm,
earlier. This whole idea of like I was chatting with one of the guys earlier, and he was saying that he has reset a goal for himself, and he's looking to lose an additional 70 pounds on top of what he's already lost. Already made some
mhm,
amazing
mhm,
transformations in the last 75 days, and he's looking to do even more. But like you said, now since we don't have some of that same program and community aspect, it's now got to become more internalized. So I
mhm.
wonder, is that where with NLP and this whole idea of deep work, is that where, for instance, you would sit down with him or with me and talk through some of those things to put I guess that driving motivation and figure out what it is that would really help us to keep moving forward individually when we don't have maybe that same accountability group?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that could happen. I think the other thing, and I didn't mention this, that happens with group is structure.
Yeah. Hmm.
And so if if a person comes out of a challenge, they get jump started, they get the structure, and they come out of the challenge with the structure. Sometimes they're good and they succeed inside of just having the structure. If someone goes in the group and they make big gains and they go out of the group and it's like slide back, then it
Exactly.
may be more of a structure issue, or it could be like what are the internal barriers, and that might be a place to sit down to say, what is that we need to create, what are the internal conversations that are stopping you, if any, and then what are the structures we need to create to actually have things be moving forward continuously, right? What internal and external accountabilities need to be created? So what strategies? In
Right.
neurolinguistic program, we talk a lot about strategies, unconscious strategies. What strategies need to be created to keep you motivated to continue with the structure that's been put in place?
That's good. No, I love that, and I love that, and I appreciate you coming even into DMD Plus and providing kind of some counsel and some general introduction and framework around that. So definitely looking to have you work with the guys some more, and even have some of the new folks that are coming into Plus to look at some of the things that you've already put up about that, because I think it's so helpful when we can start getting into understanding why we think the way that we do and why we act the way that we act. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I, l-
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Now, one of the things I know we were talking about, because like I said, I love following you on social media. I love kind of seeing how you use all these concepts in your real life. And so
Yeah.
not only, are you yourself a physician, but empowering other people, but you've also been able to even see how some of this stuff even can help in the roles and lives of our children. So I know we were chatting about where you were talking with your 6-year-old son and how he was able to come to you. And I don't remember the whole context of the background, but I think
Mhm.
if I remember correctly, he basically came to you and was saying that the day wasn't going like he wanted it to, that he wasn't
Oh yeah.
he wasn't feeling as good as he wanted to. He felt, a little off, and just that he just was not in a good headspace. And what blew my mind, because I have a 5-year-old, soon to be 6-year-old next month,
Mhm.
just the fact that he was able to come to you in y'all's interactions and share that, so
Mhm.
that way maybe you didn't misconstrue some of his other actions, or if you asked him to do something and he had a bad attitude or whatever else, the fact that he communicated his emotions up front. So I'd love just to even have you chat about how you've kind of walked through that whole NLP process at home, and even instilled it into a young kid, your young child, to help him be able to express what even myself or some adults can't even share.
Yes. Well, the first thing I have to say is, and it's funny, um, I was just talking with a friend about this yesterday, that it really takes something as a parent to be able to be that mindful with their kids. Because, the kids, like, they push all the buttons, no matter what age they are, they push
That's right.
all the buttons, right? And so when those moments happen, we have to first be so mindful of our own response and reaction. And let me say, I do not get it perfect all the time. I am always working on that aspect of how do I continue to activate the pause button when I have an emotional reaction to something my son does,
Right.
right? And so the way I think I have allowed my son to be able to develop his sort of emotional expression is by asking,
Mm,
well, how are you feeling today? Well, what's like, if there's a behavior and I have the presence of mind to like pause, like, okay, well, what is going on that has you do this? And he was like, well, I'm just mad, or, and so then like me asking him gives him this sort of access to what he's feeling, to like knowing what he's feeling. And so
right.
some days he'll just come to me and say, I'm feeling emotional. Like, I think that's what I was sharing. I'm feeling emotional, mom. I'm feeling really emotional today. And he goes through all of the various emotions that he's feeling, right? And I just say, okay, well, sometimes we get emotional, sometimes I feel emotional too, right?
Yep.
One day he came to me, he said, and this is where I use the tools of NLP. It says that reframing, many people might have heard of that term, like reframing, and there's the actual technique of. And so my son was running outside down some porch steps that I had told him numerous times not to run down. And we were on our way to his kung fu class, and he was running down the steps and apparently fell on the last step and scraped his or bumped his knee, right? And then my partner at the time came and was carrying back up the stairs. So I said, all right, let's see. I'm a mom doc, so I'm like, let me see. Okay, all your teeth are still in. Okay, there's no blood. Can you move all your limbs? Put your arms up, bend them. Okay, your fingers, your toes. Can you walk? Okay, now tell me what's wrong, right?
Yeah,
He's like,
exactly. Right.
there was no bumps on the head, no blood coming in from anywhere. And so, I mommed him up, gave him the hug and kiss after I assessed him. And then we're in the car. So we going to Kung Fu. And he's like, Mom, this started out the worst day ever. I'm never gonna run again. Right. And I
Yeah.
said, well, okay, it may have started that way, but we're going to Kung Fu and you really like Kung Fu. So maybe, just maybe, you can use Kung Fu as a reset button. Like, remember in the past where you were having a bad day and you actually changed the day and changed it by pressing the internal reset button? Maybe Kung Fu can be your reset. And it was like, maybe so. But I'm still never running again. I was like, okay, well, that's fine. You don't have to ever run again. So then we get to Kung Fu, it goes in there. And that was just a suggestion,
Right.
right? To the kid. Maybe Kung Fu will be the reset button. And he gets in there and he goes in there and he has fun. And of course, next thing you know, he's running up and running when they're doing their warm-ups. And I just smiled to myself. And on the way home, I said, how you feeling, son? He said, I'm feeling good, mommy. It really was a reset, right? And so it's
Hmm.
little simple things like that we can do to help our kids learn the strategies of when they're having a bad day, how to reset themselves. You know, um,
Mm.
when we have a clock upstairs that has a couple of color buttons on there, so like a green button and a red button, and when you press the button, it turns the screen the certain color. So
Okay.
I've programmed the green button as a 7-minute meditation and the red button as a 12-minute meditation for when he's really, really upset. And so it's an anchor, like it's an anchor to calm him down. And so sometimes if he's wilding out, I'm like, go seven. All I have to say is 7 minutes, go. And he and and he goes up and he presses the button, and then, like 7 minutes later, he's cool. He's like, I'm sorry I blah 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 yelled at you or stomped or whatever, right? And it works,
Oh
right?
man. Oh, I
Yeah,
like that.
and the reason he can apologize is because I apologize. So we have to remember, as parents, we're models. And if I lose it with him, which I sometimes do, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
yell at him, and then then I gotta go and check myself and shake off the mom guilt.
Yeah.
And then I gotta go back and be like, oh, sorry I yelled at you earlier. I mean, this is what happened. This is why I yelled, and I apologize for yelling like that. And let's look at why that happened and how you can behave, differently next time or whatever, like with the solution, right?
Exactly.
And it works because then when he wilds out, he comes back and is like, I'm sorry, mommy, this is what I'll do next time. And we're working on that, right? It's not perfect, but
Right.
that's the domain that we traffic in.
Now, I love that. I actually just, man, it's so many keys there, and that whole piece of parents apologizing and having these adult conversations and interactions with our kids, because like you said, that's what we would do with another adult.
Mhm,
If something didn't go right, and if something didn't, the interaction didn't go like it should have, we would get back and we would talk about it.
mhm,
And so I've even had this conversation with my wife that, yeah, I know early on, I think of them as children, like you said, as kids,
mhm,
not little adults. And so
mhm,
this whole idea of going to them, apologizing when we make a mistake, when we yell, when we don't don't model that good
mhm,
behavior. And so I just had to apologize to my 8-year-old just the other day, because I was taking out my frustration of oversleeping and her
mhm.
choosing to move slow, but not
Right.
choosing, because she always moves slow. So
Right.
as my wife said, this was nothing new. The only added caveat was you woke up late, so therefore everything was running behind. And
Right.
so she was like, yeah, that was you, that wasn't her. And I was like, you know what, you're
Right.
exactly right. So
And it takes really stepping outside of our ego to do that. Because I'm gonna tell you, my parents didn't never, I mean, I
I
don't
know
ever
that's
remember
right.
my parents apologizing to me for nothing
Right.
to this day. To this
They were
day.
like, you better suck it up, I'll give you something to cry
Right.
about.
Right. You see these memes on TikTok, and they be like, how a black mom apologizes. You want to get something to eat?
Exactly.
You want some
Exactly.
ice cream? Here's your favorite food. That, I mean, we get
Uh,
it, but at the same time, like, that's something, if you want your child to grow up, to model that kind of behavior, you have to do it. You have to suck up that ego,
right.
because there's people that are adults that they it's like there's a fear of being wrong and what that means and what that looks like.
Right.
But the truth is, we're human. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna be wrong, and we have to model to our kids that we're not perfect and they're not perfect, and it's okay that they're not perfect as long as they clean it up and then learn the lesson and don't do the same thing over and over. You
Mm.
know,
I love it. I love it. Not being perfect, and then taking and learning early on how to take responsibility for your actions.
yeah.
Ah, I love it. Tell me real quick about this. So it's a physical clock or a device that has a green and a red button?
It is. I wish I had brought it in. I could show you, but it is a clock device, and I actually originally bought it so that when the clock turns, the clock could turn blue and it could signal him for bedtime, so that I didn't have to argue with him about what time to go to
Exactly.
bed, right? So it's programmed to turn blue at a certain time, which
Right.
anchors him to know that it's time for him to go to sleep, and then it turns yellow when I put my wake up time on. And then, it has a couple of other buttons on that if you double tap them and
Yeah.
hold them, it'll turn the screen these different colors. And you could just, um, look it
Yeah.
up on Amazon. There's
Okay.
little, like kid clocks, kid colorful face clocks or something like that, right?
Wait, so
And
when you hit it and it does a 7 minutes, does it actually play like some music, or it just is a 7 minute timer?
I think the clock that we have has like these little inserts where it can play the music, but no, I just have it set the time. And then he's to go up and be in that room quiet and
Right.
meditate however it looks for him, right? And also we have a morning routine. So when he
Yeah.
wakes up in the morning, I write my gratitude list. He has a journal, and I usually at night will write some type of statement or question in his journal for him to answer or write the next day, depending on how the previous day was. And so he gets up, 7 minutes of meditation, read a short book, and then write in your journal. That's his morning routine. And then get dressed, of course, right?
Exactly.
Get dressed.
I love that. I will say, and actually, that's a whole other piece of a conversation. And guys, and folks watching this, something that has really actually helped in a lot of ways is changing up our concept of a morning and evening routine. So now
Mhm.
we're an Amazon family, got Amazon all throughout the house. So I even got the two older kids their own Amazon Dot.
Mhm.
I can't say her name because, of course, then she's gonna start going off here in my room and
I
everything
know
else.
that's
So I just
right.
call it an Amazon device. But
Right.
but we got a device, and I programmed routines so that now what used to be like the other morning when I overslept, they actually slept through the whole morning routine, which is out
Hmm.
of the ordinary. We used to
Hmm.
just have the alarm clock that beep 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 beep, and everybody jumps up, heart racing, and we just get
Yes.
and just get started with the day. Now instead now it wakes up, I actually have it pre-programmed where it says it's time to get up, mommy and daddy love you, we're gonna have a great day.
Mhm.
It plays 10 minutes of music that's the upbeat, kids bop for
Yeah.
them right now, so they can
Mhm.
get up kind of dancing and everything else, and the morning and the day just starts off so much better than it used to with
So
the beep
cool.
beep beep beep.
Right. Oh my gosh. Even on my phone, I have this like ethereal music that comes on to wake me up, because that beep, 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 beep is like cortisol rush, right? Like,
Exactly, it's ridiculous.
and my son, he has a natural internal alarm clock. There's no alarm. He just wakes up. Now I'm
Just
sure
pops
as he
up.
gets older and he becomes teenage years and they need more sleep, I'm gonna have to implement a lot. But I love that,
Yeah.
right? It's time to wake up. Mommy and daddy loves you. It's gonna be a great day. Like that's a mantra. It's an anchor. It's like a way to start the day, right? Like a gratitude list,
There you go.
And so it's so important to have those, to have your kids have those, to have the routines for yourself,
Hmm.
and then to include your children in these kinds of routines. So Delson knows in the morning, I have thank you. I write my thank yous, right? I used to, ask him if he wanted to write his thank yous, and he's just not there yet. So he writes whatever he writes in the journal, like Delson feels happy, or whatever I ask him to write. Well, I have the question of the day,
Right.
whatever that is, you know.
I love that,
Mhm.
and I think you made a key point because like I took the time, even my even my wife asked me about this. I took the time to create this whole kind of 15-20 minute wake up routine for them. They have the same thing at night with the go to bed routine. But have
Mhm.
I done that for me? No, no. I have kind of some unwritten things that I do in the morning, but it's not as specific as I've set out for them. So the whole idea of putting the mask on yourself first and then putting it on the kids, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So. So I'll have to go back and redo that. But Dr. Maiysha, I really appreciate your time today. I know we can go so much deeper and go into so many
I
other things with
know.
everything that you do, but I appreciate it. And I know that everything that you offer and bring to the table, people can find at drmaiysha.com. So that's
That's right.
Dr. Dr. Maiysha, Maiysha, drmaiysha.com. And then, of course, I'll have all this stuff linked at dadsmarriedtodoctors.com. So, Dr. Maiysha, thank you for your time. I really appreciate the conversation today.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's always fun to talk to you, Curtis. And it's just, I love this work. I love um, this like shifting of the mind at the unconscious level, because it's the most powerful place to to transform one's life, right? As at that unconscious level, because it causes the deeper, the longer lasting, the the results in all areas of life.
Right.
And so then that's why I do what I do.
And let me ask you this, because I know so many of the parents out there, so many of the dads, especially in my DMD group, they're probably like me, where we kind of have this idea of what we want life to look like. We have this idea
Mhm.
that, you know what, the way I interacted with my kids a moment ago, it didn't turn out, it didn't have the
Mhm.
results that I wanted. I ended up
Mhm.
becoming angry. They're angry. Maybe not slamming doors and stuff, but we're not in the place that I would want us to be. My wife and I were having a conversation, and in my head it was going to go this way, but instead it ended up going this way, and it just did not. Apparently, we didn't communicate as effectively as I thought. And I know you actually have a whole program where you teach tools to help us especially with our programming, and to retrain that. So can you take and give us a 30-second overview of what you do with your Mind Remapping Academy, and when you're offering your opportunities?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So I talked about earlier neurolinguistic programming, and that's how we use language, internal and external, to to really get at the source of our thinking habits, internal dialogues, and therefore create new results in our lives. And I am the kind of person that it's great to give a man a fish, but I'm more of a teach a person to fish kind of girl, right? And
Yeah.
so I actually teach and train the tools and techniques of neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis. And you can use it in the way that you use it, like hypnotic language patterns, like metaphors and storytelling and things like that. People, when they think about learning hypnosis, they're like, oh, clutch my pearls, right? And
I just
and
want to do
it's
like
not
Office Space, and just be able to zone out, and then nothing bothers me.
right. So that you can learn self-hypnosis, you know what I'm saying? By learning hypnosis. But I teach this because I think that it's a powerful tool for us to be able to access our own unconscious minds, but then also to be able to, transform the people around us. And some people use it in business. Some people just use it for their personal life. I have a couple of people who are in my program now who just want to be better people, and then see where it might apply elsewhere, but they want to be better parents or better spouses or better whatever, right?
You're right.
And so the program it is now a live program. It was virtual, of course, because of COVID, but now we're sort of safe to do more live stuff. It is a 1 week live, I call it retreat style training. And I take only 10 people per training to, sort of keep it, once again, COVID safe, and we'll observe all the precautions. And we have a training coming up in July, the 7th through the 14th here in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta. And September the 15th to the 22nd as well. And so if you're interested in learning about those trainings, you can go to drmaiysha.com. You can, click the link to schedule a call with me, and we could talk a little bit more about how it might work in your life, and see if it's the right fit for you.
I love that. I love that. I'm excited about sitting in on one of those trainings and classes, because, like you said, not only do I want to share this knowledge with the world, and especially with the DMD community, but also I just want to pull it into my own life. I want to make better
Mhm,
choices. I want to get even better at catching my thoughts, so that, like the other
mhm.
morning when we woke up late, I can take the necessary 30 seconds, refocus, and say, you know what, even though we're running behind, I still can control how this morning is going to start and how this day is going to go. And instead of
Yes,
starting it crazy and frantic, you know what, no, we're going to do this better.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I appreciate that. And for you DMDs that are watching this, if you go over to dadsmarriedtodoctors.com, click on the DMD Plus link, you can actually go ahead and join us. We're going to reopen the doors to DMD Plus here starting from May 1st. DMD Plus is just $25 a month, or you can get the whole year, get 2 months free for $250 for the year up front. And you're able to actually come in and get some of the pre-recorded coursework that Dr. Maiysha has already offered for us. And then we're also looking to bring her back in here in the next few months to do some other live trainings that will only be there within the DMD Plus community. So if you want to get a preview of what she's already done and what she brings to the table, definitely come join us over on Plus. And then you can sign up for the full course, and become as mindful as you need to be. So thank you all for joining us today. Dr. Maiysha, again, thank you for your time, and look forward to talking with everybody on the next one.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.